Okay, it looks like once again I had a bit of technical trouble there with my sound. Uh, I'm going to uh, just stall here for just a moment until I see somebody's comment that that I am live and you can hear me. Thank you, William. Thanks to all my fans in Scotland who William actually called me uh, to let me know, or at least rattle my chain that I wasn't being heard by anybody. So okay, Jay, thank you very much. I guess I'm heard now. Welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Off to another start. I guess over the last few days were the solar flares or something has been really giving me technical troubles with my daily shows here. Anyway, uh, the I started off by mentioning here in 1972, I painted. I took the BOTA Builders of the Atom lessons, and part of that was painting my own tarot cards. And I had these out to show class. And but what I wanted really to do was to show you a classic angel picture because I want to talk. Here we go. That's how I painted my, and I don't know if you can see the gold metallic paint there that I used even, and I did the backs. So they're pretty stiff cards here. Uh, anyway, that's sort of the classic view of an angel. I did a little poem for every one of the trumps, and the one for the lovers, I sort of based on the Rider-Waite and the BOTA classic archetypal image here. And there's Adam and Eve, and Adam's looking at Eve, but Eve's looking at the angel. Okay, so upon the woman, man looks with lust, but the angel is her true lover. The man imagines what he must, but it's a God who makes love to her. Anyway, I want to talk about the Holy Guardian Angel, and if you're ready to be loved by your Holy Guardian Angel, and if not, you have the definition of the great work that lay before you. Because the first big plateau of magical consciousness is your union with your own holy guardian angel. Until that is achieved, you're pretty much shooting in the dark. And all your magic is going to be a hit and miss affair. Because until you have the angel, you don't even have a chance of knowing what is or is not in your own best interests. Okay, here's a little speech. It's very short. Well, not very, but listen. The Holy Guardian Angel. Half your soul is asleep, and dreams it is human. The other half is awake, and dreams it is God. Wed the two halves of your soul and become who you really are. When we hear the term Holy Guardian Angel, many of us immediately think of one of two things. Something warm and fuzzy like little Catholic children pray their prayer to the Holy Guardian Angel, Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love commits me here, ever this day be at my side, to light and guard, to rule and guide. Amen. Now that's pretty sweet. Okay, not only that, you could say that today in good conscience, no matter what religion you are. They either think it's something warm and fuzzy like that, or something Kabbalistic and kind of cold. Then you whip out your tree of life, which is a diagram which tries to map out our existence and being as levels of consciousness. From your head, right there, your head there, 10, to Godhead at the top there, number 1, the singularity, the supreme intelligence. Now, using this map, the world we normally perceive and the objective reality most of us identity with dwells way down there in number 10, the slowest, most dense, and darkest frequency of consciousness. It's called by the Kabbalists. Well, one way of looking at it is the microcosm. Now, you can argue that the macrocosm is really, well, never, for the sake of conversation, the microcosm, the little world, the manifest world of matter and energy, the world we think is objective reality, and the world of our everyday consciousness. Because the ancient Hermeticists tried to understand this phenomenal world in terms of 5 elements, fire, water, air, earth, and spirit, they represented the microcosm by the figure of the pentagram. But if we could wake up just a little bit, we'd discover that above this microscopic world of space-time and all the microscopic furniture we stub our microcosmic toes on, there are 7 layers of a different dimension, a different order of consciousness frequencies that act like a prism that breaks up the pure light of Godhead into a spectrum of descending levels of consciousness. And that's those guys up there, okay? These 7 layers of consciousness the ancients attributed to the primal planetary spheres. Together they form what is called the macrocosm, the greater world, the higher dimensions of consciousness and reality represented by the hexagram. So you could sort of draw a hexagram like that, and we sort of put that over there to be the top triangle. Okay. It's hard to do things backwards on them. Which symbolizes the sun right there, surrounded by the spheres of Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Luna. Perfect realization of and attunement with this level of consciousness is referred to by Christian mystics as Christ consciousness. Where in the language of Christianity, the consciousness of the Father, that would be this guy right here, technically this guy as a triple definition anyway, this guy, number 6, right there, the sun, is a direct reflection of the Father. The Father, the Son. Okay. Where in the language of Christianity, the consciousness of the Father is perfectly reflected in the consciousness of the Son. In Kabbalistic language, the supreme consciousness of Kether, number 1, the crown, is reflected perfectly in the consciousness of Tifereth, number 6, the heart, on the tree of life. And I can hear the wheels turning in your head about chakras and things like that. But we digress. In order for us to wake up to this state of consciousness, we must first snap out of the dream of the microcosm. We must awaken to the level of consciousness of the sixth Sephirah, the sphere of the sun, which corresponds to the human heart in the psychic center. Now, you know what the yogis call these psychic centers. They call them chakras, okay? And the heart chakra is the anahat, or anahata. Its symbol, like the symbol of the macrocosm, is the hexagram. Usually beautiful green hexagram. And here's where it gets romantic. Like Sleeping Beauty, we're all asleep down here in our world of 5. And the only thing that can awaken us is the kiss of the macrocosmic prince. Your prince is right here, right now, all around you, trying to plant that kiss on your unconscious lips. But you'll never awaken unless you can allow yourself to do 2 things at once. First, you must fall head over heels, helplessly, hopelessly, insanely, absolutely, completely, droolingly, gaga in love with God. Then, at the same time, simultaneous, it's got to be a 2-way thing. You got to fall in love with God, and at the same time, you must be able to completely open yourself up to allow yourself to receive that same intense of love back from God. And please remember, God can take any form. Like a microphone that comes in too near to a speaker, this simultaneous giving and receiving of pure love creates a love feedback that activates the Anahata chakra and starts it spinning faster and faster. There's an entire branch of yoga dedicated to this divine wedding. It's called Bhakti Yoga, union with God by devotion. Bhakti is love, loving God, loving your own self, and loving all things, all beings. The small heart should become bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually totally expansive. A spark can become a forest fire. But you got to ignite the spark. The spark event is the opening of the Anahata chakra, or the heart chakra, and the particular instances and the particular circumstances, that ignites that spark will be different for each and every one of us. But in the language of the Western mysteries, the wedding of the consciousness and the consciousness of the 5 with the consciousness of the 6 is called knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. Now, has this happened to me? Yes. I have experienced the knowledge and conversation of my holy guardian angel. And I say that without evasion, equivocation, or mental reservation of any kind. But I must confess, the experience, while proving itself exactly as advertised, was and still is nothing like I expected. In fact, I had pretty much stopped waiting for my angel. After nearly 50 years of psychedelics and rituals and meditations and initiations and mantras and pranayama and a litany of minor epiphanies, I quite frankly stopped expecting anything. If you'd like, I'll try to describe it, but it's hard. It's impossible, really, to properly talk about it. Besides, it's the most intensely personal and intimate experience. So the particulars will vary with each individual on Earth. But I have to share what I can, just how the forest fire was sparked in me. Because now it's the only thing I want to talk about. It's the only thing I write songs about. It's the only thing I want to think about. And if I'm not thinking about it, I'm just not myself. I comb my drug-damaged brain looking for word vessels capable of capturing even for a moment the droplet of the spray of this infinite ocean. I can only come up with 4 words that begin to say it. I love all things. But that doesn't really say it because it's a sentence that uses parts of speech, and now I love all nouns and all verbs and all adverbs and adjectives and pronouns. I love the silence between the words. I love the space between the letters. I love you. And I say this with the deepest conviction. I love every woman of you. I love every man of you. I love every child and animal and plant and mineral and cell and molecule and atom and photon and subatomic particle. I breathe out and I breathe, I love you, to the universe. And with every inhalation, the universe answers back, I love you too. And I know with a certainty that transcends the machinery of my meat brain that when I draw my last breath, this love mantra will continue, because it is quite frankly the love song that is holding all of this together. I just want to make love to the firmament. Shortly after my unexpected awakening, I wrote a little poem that I eventually turned into a song. I wish I were Krishna, love god of the Hindu. I'd copy myself into multiple me's and make love to all the gopi girls I could please, delivering with each illimitable squeeze a full divine measure of unimaginable pleasure. And to each of my loves I'd be steadfast and true, vowing in truth I love only you. Each monad of existence would be my sweet bride, whose womb I would penetrate and explode me inside. Within each, without each, gush my ocean of Bindu. I wish I were Krishna, love god of the Hindu. Now, where did all of this come from? Why all of a sudden have I gone so love crazy? For years, my wife Constance has said romance is her religion, and now I say it too, because it's a very romantic tale. Not long ago, I was booked to play a show. Now it's a long time ago. Booked to play a show at Cafe Vivaldi in New York's Greenwich Village. I was staying in Queens with my friend Kent, an OTO brother and fellow musician. For me, New York City is the most romantic city on earth, a city of Gershwin and Cole Porter. A city that has, for the last few years, been my muse and the venue for my musical rebirth. I was writing a new love song and preparing for my show in the city, and Kent was trying to get me interested in his new artistic passion, the tango. I'm not a dancer, but Kent certainly is, and nearly every night he goes into the dark and sultry tango clubs in Midtown Manhattan. He even travels each year to Buenos Aires to dance with the gods of tango in the sweaty grottos of that Argentinian Olympus. So that night I was alone in my Jackson Heights hermitage. Brother Kent had gone into the city to dance and left me watching he put on a YouTube VCR, said, "Watch this, watch this." And it was a video of Mariano Chicho Framboli, and he was dancing with Juana Sepulveda. You can Google them. They're kind of grainy, atmospheric tango movies, just contests and demonstrations. The music is just, wow. These two, Juana and Chicho, they're perhaps the most passionate, romantic, and exciting tango dancers in the world. As I watched and listened to that torturously beautiful music, I began to think about love. How all my life I've been really good at loving. Very good. Too good at times. I fall in love easily and deeply and often. It seems I've always had a boundless supply of love to give to my friends, my lovers, my heart. I've never had a problem loving. No problem giving love. But for as long as I can remember, I've had real difficulty receiving love. A problem accepting love. A problem being loved. My heart could pump out a rich, flowing stream of love blood to all the universe, but for some reason would not allow the love to flow back with equal volume and intensity. And love, like spirit, is an alternating current, an active, passive thing. As Chicho held Juana in his arms, she put her arm so purposefully across his back and shoulders and placed her hand directly behind his heart. I felt a shock from behind my own heart. Then, as if the voice of God were speaking directly to my soul, the words of the Beatles song suddenly made profound sense. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Then, I recalled the line from Ed Nabez's Nature Boy. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Then between the notes of the tango music, between the steps on the dance floor, time and space collapsed together like the billows of an accordion. My Jackson Heights flat became a time machine, and I was taken literally 50 years into the past. It was not a memory. I was there. I was there at a moment in time when the full force of my pure love was being joyously, totally accepted, received. Even instantly, the reciprocal ray of that love, the exact infinite intensity, was beamed back to me. Nearly 50 years ago, I hadn't recognized what was going on. It was too profound, too simple, too subtle for my young heart. I panicked and turned aside the catcher's mitt of my heart. I deflected the full force of that returned love, and I had been doing it ever since. It was the moment of my fall. The moment that separated me from the paradise love of the angel. But that moment was back. I was there again. And as the YouTube orchestra played a dramatic flourish, and Chicho violently pulled Juana into his arms and drug her limp body backwards across the dance floor. But she wasn't passive. She actually seemed to be pushing him, propelled from the tips of her stiletto shoes. This paradox of perfect balance of active and passive passion triggered in my heart a wave of realization. I returned to the moment of my fall from the gift of love. Only now I gave myself permission to change that moment in fragile time. This time I opened my heart and caught the full force of my own returned love. Do you know what feedback is? Feedback is when you put an active microphone near an amplified speaker it's connected to. It triggers an almost instantaneous ear-splitting howl. That's what happened at that moment. Only it was a feedback of love. And instead of a painful screech getting louder and louder, it became a sweet, clear note that became sweeter and sweeter and clearer. I was thrown back into my chair. It felt as though a fiery pinwheel had been set ablaze in my chest. It spun faster and faster, and the sparks it threw off spread through my whole body right down to the pores of my skin. My hair stood on end, and my hands and fingers and feet and toes were charged with electricity. I was afraid to move my hands for fear I would knock stuff off the wall across the room. I had jammed the wet finger of my 5 deep into the electrical light socket of the great 6. I had reconnected with the supreme alternating current of life, and I burned with the wall-to-wall, ever-feedbacking love that lights the stars. I knew if I remained seated, I would incinerate completely into that light. But I didn't care. I pulled on my shoes and grabbed my hat and coat and went out into the cool evening and walked and walked and walked and walked. I don't know where. Queens is a wonderful place to walk around. Jackson Heights. I don't know for how long. I was careful not to bump into people on the street, on the sidewalk. I knew if I touched them, they'd burst into flames. It was late when I returned, and I was still exploding, but the explosion was now madly centered in sort of a containment chamber, roughly in the neighborhood of my heart. It's still there. It hasn't gone away, so I guess when you look at me, you're looking at my angel. So that's my thoughts on the Holy Guardian Angel this morning. I've shared it in other times and capacities. But that's it for Saturday morning cartoons. I again apologize for the false start. And I hope you heard that, because I'm not going to do it three times today. Until tomorrow and Sunday school, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.